Hey, howdy, hello, and welcome to the show. Welcome back to another episode of the Steam Redlight series, the series where we look at Steam's most lowly and controversially rated games to see if they're as bad as the internet says they are. I'm your host for the day, Smirk. So a viewer by the name of Thomas commented that I should cover this game back on my Gleamlight video, and no games released this week that were controversial, except for WWE 2K Battlegrounds, and I really didn't want to spend $40 on my weekly review game, so I'm covering a suggested game. Thanks, Thomas. So this game is a little special, because it's currently the lowest rated game on Steam that I can see, so maybe it sucks that I'm reviewing this now and maybe not in a year when I don't suck as bad at everything. But I just had to see if this game is as bad as 1,800 people say it is. Today's game is Flatout 3, Chaos and Destruction. It was released on December 13, 2011. It was developed by Team 6 Studios and published by Strategy First. The game currently has 2,080 reviews, with roughly 12% of the reviews being positive. It currently costs $10 regularly, but almost every time I go to the store page, it's on sale for less than a few dollars. This game is pretty simple to describe. It's a driving game with the accessory mechanic being that you're going to be destroying shit. There's no story, but instead several game modes that place you in different driving-related scenarios. You can select certain drivers and different cars with some slight variation to their tuning, their paint color, and etc. There's an equivalent of a NOS boost, which starts full, but needs to be refilled by destroying things. There's also this red bar that also makes you immune to a hit, but that never successfully worked for me, so I question its integrity. And that just about captures the core gameplay mechanics. To cover all the game modes as briefly as I can, we have traditional racing, where you race against 15 other people in a 3-lap scenario across various maps. Stunt mode, which is less about driving and more so about ejecting your character and hitting a specific target somewhere. Big battle. No racing. You and 23 other cars bump into each other until either you or everyone else explode in a fiery death. Regular battle. No racing. Again, you and 11 other cars bump into each other until either you or everyone else explode in a more intimate fiery death. Monster trucks. You hit things with it and score points while doing so. Speed racing. High-speed racing with hyper-fragile cars on a circuit. Night shift, which is like regular racing, but it's at night, against one other person, and the roads are wet. Off-roading, where you gather style points in a truck-like car across some open terrain through means of drifting, jumping, or outright destruction. Splat out, which you just run over zombies for points within a time limit. Challenge mode, where you get challenged by Team 6 to be a better person. Alright, now that we've laid the groundwork, let's move on to what's good. I found Stunt Mode to be my favorite part of the game, and I probably spent the most amount of time playing in that mode. But in retrospect, I think I liked it because of its lack of need to use the game's driving physics. I also feel like I was able to find a lot of memeable moments in the game, so here's a few I thought of while playing the game because I'm desperately trying to relate to today's youth.
Do a barrel roll!
Beyblade, Beyblade, let it rip! Let's fight an epic battle! Face off and spin the metal!
I'm like a bird, I only fly away.
Alright, well, enough of that. Let's talk about what makes this game very ungood. The driving physics are really shallow and easy to take advantage of. Essentially, when you're doing any type of turn, you just tap your brake or your handbrake a couple of times to change your car's orientation, and then you hit your super boost to actually adjust your direction. This makes all the concrete-based racing modes pretty easy. The only thing you have to worry about is getting T-boned by the other drivers. The AI is pretty wacky. In my Night Shift match, my first opponent consistently crashed on the first turn. On some interactions of Night Shift, some opponents handled the map really well, and some seemed like they crashed and then I never saw them again. In other modes, like battles, regular or big, sometimes the AI will just spin around forever, not looking for an opponent even if there's only 2 people remaining.
Go round the outside, round the outside, round the outside!
Speaking of the battles, whether big or regular, I just didn't find them very fun. It feels good the first 1 or 2 times you run into an opponent at full speed, but seeing that you've only done 1% damage, but have taken 3% of damage in turn is a little discouraging. Also, it's not about being the last one standing, it's actually about garnering the most amount of points and then dying before you lose the lead. Some game modes feel poorly executed or just not fully thought out. For example, off-roading is really lackluster because they only have 2 maps, so if you like off-roading, you only really get 2 maps to enjoy it on. Now they do technically have 4, but you have to count the fact that they reverse the other 2 maps. I don't think the Flatout mode is well designed. It's so far from something that feels natural in this game. I commonly found myself needing to drive a little slower so I can hit as many zombies consecutively, because if you hit them at what would be considered a normal driving speed, you lose control and you're almost guaranteed to drop your combo. The monster truck mode is pretty similar to Flatout in terms of it just not being well thought out, and that's because the trucks themselves seem incredibly fragile. You have to carefully creep around the map trying not to get hit or lose a substantial amount of health trying to hit your targets. It does really suck when you explode trying to get the last bit of your targets to complete the level. Now the mode I hate the most is challenge mode. When you hear of challenge mode, you think of some unique circumstances that may challenge your skills at the game. But instead what you get is just doing regular parts of the game with no additional circumstances. You'd hope there's something like finish this race in 5th place, or finish the race while taking less than 10% damage, or finish the race without using your super boosts, but no. The challenges I played in mostly consisted of finish the race in 1st place, or complete the objective that's available in the game mode that this map belongs in. It's also pretty funny because on some challenges, you don't actually finish them, like you don't fulfill them. Sometimes you finish in 2nd place. The game lets you move on anyway and marks them as completed in the main menu. Or at least I hope they do, because you can't go back and do the challenges over. Eventually, while going through the challenges, I saw them throw in the challenge, leave them all behind, and I was genuinely in awe. It's like the developers knew they needed to change something about the challenges, and their solution was instead to break out some synonyms instead of just putting in something else, like asking for you to complete a race while being a dog that drives an airplane, or some shit like that. That would have at least made the challenges more entertaining. They could have just renamed it to career mode, and it would have been reasonably less disappointing. There's some small amount of nuances in the game that just bother me, so to name a few, the game has no tutorial. To add on to that, the explanation for each game mode is packed into the loading screen. When the loading screen is done, it doesn't actually need a button confirmation to send you into the game, it just sends you to the start of the race so you don't get a chance to understand all the rules of the mode. Alright, goal of the game is to earn points by damaging your opponents. Take your time to plan your attack. Okay, I didn't really get a lot of time to look at that. Specifically for the stunt mode, the game tells you to hit the eject button, but at no point does it tell you what the eject button is. I had to go look for it in the controls menu. For the off-roading maps, it doesn't save your score for whatever reason. The game tracks your attempts on maps, but it doesn't count an attempt if you restart the level.
What the fuck?
Alright, I think that's all the evidence we need to get to the verdict. The game has at least one fun game mode. The game is very memeable. The game has shallow driving physics. The AI is ridiculously dumb. Almost all the game modes are poorly executed. I do not recommend Flatout 3, Chaos and Destruction. Alright, well, that's it. I've covered the worst game ever according to Steam reviews. It actually isn't the worst game I've ever played, mainly because it runs and has gameplay that isn't overly frustrating, but I guess I'm just throwing another straw into the camel's back. In case you're wondering where Team 6 is now, they did make another racing game in 2018 called Super Street. It's currently sitting at a mixed rating, with 46% of its 181 reviews being positive, so there's improvement. Remember to like the video if you liked the video. Share the video if you like the shade of light I shed on thee. Comment on the video if you have any other lowly or controversially rated games you'd like me to look at in the future, or if you just want to say hello. Lastly, subscribe if you couldn't shirk the smirk, and maybe I'll see you again next week.
Just want to pull over and live a nice life.